Formula One race director Charlie Whiting has passed away at the age of 66. This morning, the FIA confirmed that Whiting suffered a pulmonary embolism overnight in Australia. Tributes have been pouring in from across the world of Formula One, with FIA President Jean Todt saying that Formula One has lost a faithful friend and a charismatic ambassador in Charlie. All my thoughts, those of the FIA and entire motorsport community, go out to his family, friends and all Formula One lovers. Liberty Media's Ross Brawn added, "I was filled with immense sadness when I heard the tragic news. I'm devastated. It is a great loss not only for me personally, but also the entire Formula One family, the FIA and motorsport as a whole. All our thoughts go out to his family." During the driver's press conference, Lewis Hamilton said, "I was incredibly shocked this morning to hear the sad news, and my thoughts and prayers are with his family. What he did for this sport, his commitment, he's such an iconic figure within the sporting world, and he contributed so much to us." And Sebastian Vettel added, "It's difficult to grasp when somebody's just not there anymore. I've known him for a long time, and he's sort of been the driver's man. Obviously, there are the regulations, then there is us, and he was the middleman. He was someone you could ask anything at any time." Charlie Whiting has been a huge part of Formula One for decades and became the race director back in 1997. He will be a huge loss to the sport and will be missed greatly. Rest in peace, Charlie. Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the first weekend preview of the season, and that is, of course, for the 2019 Australian Grand Prix. Coming up, I'll be going over the key stats and information ahead of this weekend's season opener, briefly covering 3 stories in the news rundown, and of course reveal my first one to watch of 2019. But before we get on to any of that, let's start by having a quick look back at some of the talking points from last year's race. I think it's fair to say that there were 2 pretty big talking points from last year's Grand Prix. I'll start with Haas and their miserable end to what was set to be their best ever weekend. Kevin Magnussen and Romain Grosjean were of course running just outside the podium places and looked set for one hell of a points haul. However, both drivers left their pit stops with wheels not correctly fitted and both had to retire. The other big moment of the race involved the virtual safety car deployed as a result of Grosjean's retirement, and with Lewis Hamilton pitting earlier and Sebastian Vettel running longer, the German was able to take full advantage of that VSC to jump the Mercedes and take the lead of the Grand Prix. Ultimately, with neither driver pitting again and overtaking pretty tough around Albert Park, Vettel was able to hold that lead and take the win in Australia for the 2nd year in a row. The weekend will also be remembered for Daniel Ricciardo's penalty for failing to slow for a red flag during practice. That was a grid drop, of course. There was also Valtteri Bottas's big qualifying crash, and Fernando Alonso's 5th place finish, and of course his "We Can Fight" radio message. Let's have a look at some of the information from last year. Then you'll have already seen the session times whilst I was going over those talking points, but it was Lewis Hamilton who put it on pole position on the Saturday with a time of a 1:21.164. As I was saying there, Sebastian Vettel went on to take the win with Lewis Hamilton in 2nd and the other Ferrari of Kimi Raikkonen in 3rd. Daniel Ricciardo set the fastest lap of the race with a lap time of 1:25.945. That was set on lap 54 of 58, and of course this year that would have been good enough for an extra point. There were a total of 15 finishers on the Sunday, and 14 of those were on the lead lap. So then, for the first time this year, let's have a look at some of the key track stats. The track length is 5.303 kilometres, or if you would prefer that in miles, that's 3.295. There are 16 corners around Albert Park, 10 of those are to the right and 6 to the left, and there will be 58 laps on Sunday. There are 3 DRS zones once again this year. The first will run from turn 2 to turn 3, the second from turn 12 to turn 13, and the third will be down the pit straight between turn 16 and turn 1. And the race lap record is a 1:24.125, and that was set back in 2004 by Michael Schumacher. The run from pole position to the apex of turn 1 is 383.6 metres. The pit lane speed limit is 80 km per hour, and that means that the total pit lane lost time is 15.8 seconds. Of course, that excludes any pit stop, so that's another 2 or 3 seconds on top of that. The highest lateral G is at turn 11, that comes in at 4.6. Drivers are at full throttle for 70% of the lap, and the best overtaking spots are at turn 1 and turn 3. It is also worth mentioning that we do see some moves made down at turn 9, although it is very risky. And drivers might also risk a move into turn 13 or turn 15, but turns 1 and 3 are certainly less of a gamble. Now, Albert Park took over as the home of the Australian Grand Prix back in 1996, and has obviously therefore hosted a total of 23 races during that time. The first race, by the way, was won by Damon Hill in the Williams. The pole sitter has gone on to win the Grand Prix on 9 occasions, with the winner coming from the front row 15 times. The safety car has been deployed at 13 out of the 23 races, and according to Lights Out blog, 3 of the last 4 Australian Grand Prix have had a safety car. Last year obviously got a VSC as well, but over those 4 races, there have only been a total of 10 laps behind the safety car. The record for most safety cars during a Grand Prix around Albert Park is 4. That was all the way back in 2006. And the fastest ever lap at the circuit was set by Lewis Hamilton last year, and that was with a time of a 1:21.164. And by the way, all of that information comes from lightsoutblog.com. So if, like me, you really do love a good stat, make sure you check out their website and give them a follow over on Twitter as well. On to the tyres for this weekend then, and there have been some changes for 2019. Last year we had the famous Pirelli Rainbow, which gave us 7 different compounds ranging from the super hard all the way down to the hyper soft. However, that was deemed too confusing for casual fans of the sport, and so for 2019, the tyres are simply going to be referred to at every Grand Prix as the hard, the medium and the soft. The hard will be marked white, the medium will be yellow, and the soft will be red. Now, of course, there will still need to be a range of compounds, but that's been reduced to just 5, and they go from the C1, which is the hardest compound, to the C5, which is the softest compound. So, for those who are interested in what compounds are available this weekend, the hard is the C2, the medium is the C3, and the soft is the C4. And in terms of the drivers' selections, Hamilton, Bottas and Vettel have all gone the same way with 9 sets of the soft tyres, 3 of the mediums, and 1 of the hards. Charles Leclerc has also chosen to take 9 sets of the soft tyres, but he's going to take 2 each of the medium and the hard. Verstappen and Gasly have gone with 9 sets of the soft tyres, as have Magnussen and Grosjean, Sainz and Norris, Raikkonen and Giovinazzi, as well as Kvyat and Albon. Russell and Kubica will just be taking 8 sets of the soft tyres, and that is mirrored by Perez and Stroll down at Racing Point. But Renault are taking the most of those red-marked C4s, with a total of 10 sets each. What about the weather for the weekend then? Well, at time of recording and according to the Met Office, we are not set to see any wet weather running, with less than a 5% chance of rain running all the way from FP1 on Friday to the checkered flag on Sunday. I will throw this caveat in there though, it is only Thursday and that could easily change between now and the end of the weekend. If you throw into that mix as well the fact that there have only been 2 races officially affected by rain at Albert Park, they were in 2003 and 2010, it is unlikely that we will see a wet Grand Prix come Sunday. But again, you never know. Okay then, for this season's preview videos, I'm going to try and include 3 news stories in a sort of mini news rundown, if you like. They will be brief, just an outline of the stories and a quick quote relevant to each. So let's kick it off then, and ahead of this weekend's season opener in Australia, Sebastian Vettel has said that the spirit is right at Ferrari and is confident the team have addressed the weaknesses that saw them struggle in the second half of 2018. The German stated, quote, "We had our weaknesses last year and we obviously tried to fix those and do much better this year. So far the spirit is right, the team is on track, the car feels good, so let's see how we start the year." Ferrari entered the new season as the early favourites following an impressive 2 weeks of winter testing. However, we will not have any indication of which team is where until the end of qualifying on Saturday, and with the Albert Park circuit actually being fairly unrepresentative compared to most tracks on the calendar, it could be a few races before we see the true pecking order. Regardless though, Ferrari do look good. I want to shout out as well, for anyone who is interested, Sebastian Vettel has named his car for 2019, calling it leaner. Next up, and Red Bull have gone aggressive right from the off in 2019, deciding to take a new upgrade package to Melbourne, a package that was originally scheduled to be on the car for the Chinese Grand Prix. Helmut Marko said that the good feeling between Honda and Red Bull has spread through the garage, allowing them to fast-track their new update. He said, quote, "Parts that were planned for the 3rd race were brought forward thanks to all the pressure Adrian Newey could provide to get them onto the car for Melbourne. In every phase, every employee was convinced. Now we are back on track. Now we have another chance to drive for victories on our own." Marko also reiterated his belief that on race pace at least, Red Bull are second only to Ferrari, but crucially ahead of Mercedes. And finally, Robert Kubica says that the introduction of a point for fastest lap could create some strange scenarios, but did joke that it's not something that will affect Williams. In case you missed it, starting from this weekend's Australian Grand Prix, a point will be awarded to the driver who sets the fastest lap of the race, provided they finish inside the top 10. And when asked what they thought about it during the press conference, drivers were not sure how much it will change, but Kubica said, "I think unfortunately it doesn't affect us a lot, at least for now. I think it can unlock some strange scenarios at the end of the race, with some cars pitting. All of a sudden, we will see cars coming in. It will depend, it will be a kind of domino. But as I said, we are not really interested about it." One thing is for sure, it is going to be very interesting to see how things pan out on Sunday, and indeed how it affects things come the end of this season. We do have a hometown hero on the grid this weekend, and that is, of course, Daniel Ricciardo. This weekend, we'll see him hop into that Renault for his first competitive outing for the team, and there are going to be a lot of eyes on him, and not just from the Aussie fans. The Honey Badger's best result at the Australian Grand Prix is 2 fourth-place finishes, and they came in 2016 and 2018. He did make it onto the podium in 2014, however was later disqualified for, quote, consistently exceeding the maximum fuel flow of 100 kilograms per hour. Therefore, since the Australian Grand Prix became a part of the F1 World Championship in 1985, no Australian driver has been classified on the podium for their home Grand Prix. Could Ricciardo finally end that drought this time around? It's a big ask, but the first race of the season can often be a race of attrition, so if he can get that Renault to the end of the race and put himself into a position where he can capitalise on any drama ahead of him, you just never know. On to my first one to watch of the season then, and it's tough to pick a driver as it is only the first race of the season. So, because he is a driver that a lot of people will be watching closely this season, if nothing else to see how he matches up to his new teammate, I'm going to go for Charles Leclerc. Ferrari do look to be the early season favourites, and so he could well be in the fastest car. He was impressive last season, especially when you consider that it was his rookie year in the sport. But of course that step up to Ferrari is a big one, and the expectations are going to be considerably higher. For me at least, it's going to be fascinating to see how he gets on this weekend. But bearing all of that in mind, it's definitely worth mentioning Pierre Gasly, who makes his debut for Red Bull, of course, Robert Kubica making his return to Formula 1 this weekend, and indeed, all of the rookies making their debuts in Australia. So much to keep an eye on. That is it then for the Australian Grand Prix weekend preview, and in the comments section down below, let me know your predictions ahead of the first Grand Prix of 2019. Who do you think will put it on pole position on Saturday? Who do you reckon will take the win on Sunday? And which drivers are you going to be keeping an eye on? Now, I will be back throughout the weekend with session watch-alongs, reports and reviews, so make sure you come along and join me for all of those, especially the watch-alongs. I've got some very early starts coming up, but that doesn't matter because F1 is back. In the meantime, though, you can follow me over on social media. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.